So well understood. We've talked a bit about supply. Mahua, let's stay on supply for a second. So, I mean, it takes a village to make this happen. It takes infrastructure, it takes OEMs, it takes batteries, it takes mining, it takes all sorts of players. But let's talk about the auto OEMs, yeah, who are instrumental in this. These are the fellows, the cynic might argue, that brought us through the internal combustion engine any amount of pollution and hooked huge populations on high-emission vehicles. Isn't this a bit like putting the cookies in charge of the cookie monster in charge of the cookies?
Oh, Jasper, of course, but we're all transitioning. I mean, glass half full, glass half empty, right? So we're all transitioning. And I think many of the automotive companies are also acknowledging that transition. It's a little bit like the hydrocarbon companies are reforming themselves within and absorbing them a new identity. Many of the old, if I can say, quote unquote, legacy automotive players are, in fact, yes, they're moving over to electric. But that said, there's a number of new players as well. And that's quite encouraging to see, that we're not only just dependent on a handful of legacy players who have the experience, they have the bandwidth, they've got the balance sheets. And in fact, we're getting a brand new market of new players with new technologies. So I'd say it's a combination of both.
Okay, fair enough. And if we expand out a little bit from this, Svein, central to the argument around EVs is that they will reduce the carbon footprint, right? But there is a debate out there about whether EVs are truly sustainable. Once you've manufactured the EV from coal-fired power stations and taken your battery halfway around the world, wouldn't the cynics say that the jury is out as to whether these things do have a lower carbon footprint? Where do you stand on the total supply chain?
Well, I don't think there is not any doubt that EVs is better for climate than the traditional cars. But there are these challenges that you talked about, and that is addressed by, for instance, new battery factories. There are 30 coming up in Europe, one even in my little city, Arendal, with 40,000 people. And they're all focusing on the issues that you are talking about. But I think still there will be problems related to EVs in the future and sustainability. And I think after some time, I think hydrogen is coming as a solution, but that are some years to go. But that is a more clean solution than EVs of today. And of course, they need to be fed with renewable electricity. So challenges are there, but should we stop at 2 degrees, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, then we need to take into use this solution for the time being. I don't think there is any doubt about that. And again, status in the world, only 1% of the cars are electric as of now. So the transition is not going fast enough, and it has to be speeded up.
And Svein, you mentioned hydrogen, and it's a futuristic technology, though moving fast. Do you see that as entirely compatible with battery-driven EVs, or do you think that it will make battery-driven EVs redundant?
Well, what I think is that we have had the traditional car for so many years. Then we now go into a period where the EVs will be the current solution. And then later on, there will be a transition to hydrogen. But I also think that, say, a country like India, where there are so much knowledge, expertise, and so forth, maybe could think about leapfrogging this so that they could take into use hydrogen solutions maybe a bit earlier than if they don't focus that in that direction. And I think that would be good for India and also for emissions.
Well, that's a good challenge for Mahua. Mahua, I'll come back to you in a second.